and welcome to the Brewmaster's Table. My name is Arran, and I am currently drinking Hobgoblin's IPA. But it's a little bit different this evening, because I am drinking alone. Tonight, it's a solo show, and I'm going to be taking you through the Other Side module for Vassal, and hopefully this will familiarize you with the engine, so you can understand how really accessible and easy it is to use, and actually how fantastic it is of a Vassal engine, and make it that much easier for you to find some opponents, get some games in, and just really have a game of TOS, because it is just such a fantastic game. So, without further ado, let's show us some Vassal. Just bring that across. Right. So, first thing I'm going to do, if you're joining an online game, join create a room, join the room as normal. Nothing there that's particularly different from what you see in Malifaux. And I'm just going to show you a couple of features. You can zoom in and out. I've already zoomed this out a little bit to make it a bit more workable. And I just want to go to this Windows map settings that you can see there. And you've got the opportunity to change this to a 4x4 if you're playing a single commander, or a 4x6 if you're playing a dual commander. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to take it to a 4x4. It gives me a bit more real estate here to put some of the other windows in place. There are a few more buttons up the top, and we're going to get through them. Let's bring up some cards. So you've got the Invader cards here, which would represent me for this evening. And then you've got the Defender cards, representing the Filthy Earth alliances. As with Malifaux, your cards are visible to you as you drag them out. They will not be visible to your opponent, and you can see that here as they're marked hidden. If you move them around, nothing happens. If you drop them into the discard pile, you see that it loses the hidden status. At that point in time, they will no longer be visible. They will now become visible to your opponent. And if you need to reveal a card for any reason, you can flip it over and flip it back whenever you're done. You can flip cards direct to the visible area there for when you're making attack actions, defensives, etc., and drag them around when you're done with them. You can also then reshuffle your deck as needed throughout the game, flipping multiple cards as needed there. Nothing particularly alien there, just like how you'd see this on Malifaux. Let's just close those out now, just to give us some more space. Next item you can see there, or next button, is the private area. That brings up a sideboard for you to stick in your units, assets, stratagems, etc., whatever information you want to include there that is not visible to your opponent. Useful when you're sort of building your company at the beginning of a game. It doesn't normally come up much more outside of that, so close that off. I'm going to skip a few of these and come back to them as needed later on. So the inventory button, let's just give this a bit more space. What you can see here is it's divided by different folders. So we've got one for units, one for assets, stratagems, some extra controls, some extra markers, and some terrain. I'm going to take you through each of these in a bit more detail. If you look at the units and the assets, etc., you will see there's also drop-down windows that allow you to change the allegiance. For today's demonstration, we are going to be Adeodatus and the Mighty Cult. So let's bring Adeodatus down onto the board. Let's bring him some friends like a Garishi. And you can't go anywhere without having some Warped. So bring down a squad of Warped. What you'll see is that when you have a squad, there is also this little token caddy. Same on the horrors, same on stalking portals, etc. So we've got these token caddies. I will take you into what that is and what it represents in a bit more detail later on. So that's how you can bring units down. If we go to assets, let's go give Adeodatus some assets. So I'll give him my standard layout for most of the time I run him. So hovering portal from the cult section, and down in the Malifaux section, I would like to give him the Relics of Ancient Malifaux. Fairly standard kit for me. And there we go. All my units drop down. And let's give him some stratagems just to keep him happy. And just to upset a few of my general opponents, I'll give them the Chaos Fissures. Typically you would have 6 of these. I'm just going to use a couple of these just to for demonstration purposes. So there you go. You've created your company. You've dropped them on the board. Normally you would keep your stratagems out to the side so they're not taking a play area. Some people keep the assets nearby the individual model. Some people might keep a copy of Adiadatus out in the side area and then just keep those assets next to him. Let's do that to avoid some clutter. Right. So that's the units, assets and stratagems on play. I'm going to take you through some more details about each of them as we go. But before I go any further, I need to show you probably my favorite feature of this entire module, and that is the reference card. This is just fantastic. Any single model that you click, or asset, or stratagem on the board will then bring up the appropriate card for that unit. So there's old Garishi over there showing the front of card. If I click the glory button, you could then see the reverse of the card as well. Really, really incredibly useful feature. It allows you to see what's going on in the game without having to use your an app on your phone or another window on your screen, or even the individual cards. You can just have everything in one location. Super useful. Before I go too much further, I want to go back to the extra controls because these are quite integral to the way the game functions. So firstly, let's bring out some tactics. Let's assume that I'm facing up against the Abyssinia. So first thing I need to do is for the tactics tokens, I need to actually connect them. So I'm playing as an invader, so I'll connect those, and my opponent will be the defender, so I'll connect those tactics to them. I just want to close the inventory window just so there's space. So what you can see is on the tactics, if I then click to the side, you see the little red go up, indicating I'm starting with my 6 tactics tokens. My opponent is starting with their 6 as well in green. And then those will be used throughout the game. And what's incredibly helpful is these tokens will show up in a number of locations. So at the top of the screen, you can see their feature there as well. You can increase and decrease them there. They're at the bottom of the screen as well. They also feature on the reference card. And if I bring up the card windows, you can see them there as well. And in every single location, you can adjust the number of tokens as you go. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you need to spend a tactics token, it's there available for your use. So that's the first part of there. So those are the tactics tokens. They've got windows here for turn tokens, VP tokens. I don't tend to use these ones. I just prefer the basic box standard ones. So I got my turn one, got my VP one. Bring those down. Those are quite useful for another couple of reasons. If you click on them, they will bring up a quick reference window. This is just useful quick reference of some fairly basic rules, what the different tokens are, the types of orders, etc. that you can then use throughout your play and then flick back to as needed. If you click on these tactics buttons, you can see that those also provide you with the appropriate allegiance cards for the 2 forces that are being used. So incredibly helpful to have those available as well. A lot of people forget about those rules during play. Going back to the controls section, you can see that there's also the ability to bring down the types of operations you might be doing, including the Field of Glory, which got brought out 4 more operations for you to try. And if you click on any of these, it'll bring up the rules appropriate for those operations. There's a few other items there. Use them as you need to use them. They're quite self-explanatory. If we then go to markers, you can see there we can get our objectives markers, we can get our important portals, and there's also appropriate ones, for example, poison clouds, minefields, etc. Tidal pools. Plenty of markers available. And then the last window there is the terrain window. If you're not using one of the pre-made maps, you can go create one from scratch, or you can add additional terrain features if you want them. Incredibly important though, once you drop a terrain feature and you click off it, it's stuck. There's no way to re-edit it, remove it, anything like that. Once it's laid down, which is different from the Malifaux module. Okay, so there's all the sort of features that you'll get from the inventory window. I'm just going to minimize that again, and let's start talking about some of the other things here. We've got deployment next to the windrows at the top, and there we can add in our deployment types, whether doing confrontation, corners, etc., all available for you. I'm just going to remove those. Quite simple to set those up. Right. Next thing I would like to take you through are the various features associated with the actual units on the board. So if we look at Adeodatus here, you can see once I click on him, a little arrow appears, and I can use the left and right buttons to indicate where I want this guy to face, and I can use forward and back to move him. Each press of the forward or back button will push them forward 1 inch, and if you want to go in smaller increments, you can use control to go at 1/2 inches, or you can use shift if you just want to nudge them about. For example, if you don't want to overlap a particular base or something similar, allow you to just get a little bit more fine tuning on the movement. There are a few other features on here. So auras, these are just useful. So for example, Adeodatus has a 12-inch range on his Arcane Barrage. This would indicate how far he could potentially shoot if he wants to take advantage of that action. You can have multiple auras up at once if you want to, and you can also go clear all of the auras in one go. There's a glow option. I tend to use this to indicate which models have activated for the turn, just as a useful visual indicator to make it clear. I find the turn takes slightly longer using Vassal than it would in real play, so it's just helpful to have those visual clues, for everyone to clearly read the board state. There are quite a few more features that are specific to squads, so I'd like to take you through those next. So if I click on the warped here, you can see each individual base has 3 faces representing 3 models. I can decrease those by going to add or remove models, and I can remove a model. Okay, and if you want to use the shortcut keys for these, it's Control M to add a model, or Control Alt M to remove one. Go down to 1, even go down to 0, just as a useful thing so you can take it off the board. And if you ever add the model back, it remembers it is a warped base. As this is a squad, they can also get an adjunct. So you can go to add or remove model, add the Raving Madman, and what you'll see is there he is with his evil book, and you can add to models. You can remove the models, or you can even remove the Madman using Control Alt A, bring him back with Control A. Very useful. If you ever want to see the adjunct for a particular unit, so if I look at the warp there, and I looked at the reference card here, there's a button there for adjunct. Click on that, brings up the Raving Madman card, and you can return to the unit by the unit button. Now, an important feature of any unit in the other side is obviously the ability to go to glory. So I can click on any model, Control G, you'll see it gives a little crown, and automatically changes the reference card to the glory card. I can obviously still go see the face card, but if I ever click on that model or that unit, it'll automatically take me to the glory side of the card. Obviously you would need to do that for each of the fire teams, just so that it tracks that. And I can do the same for old Adeodatus here and his mate the Garishi. And then now when I click on any of these cards, automatically takes me to the glory side of the reference card. Very useful. And finally, with the squads, you'll remember this little token caddy that I told you um, you need to bring down for each of your squads. In the other side, there are 4 types of tokens. You can see here on the reference window, we've got the inspired, shaken, pinned, and reinforcement token. Various features or actions and abilities throughout cards will add these to your units. So for example, in the Cult of the Burning Man, it's quite common that you will have some shaken tokens. You can either use Control S, or obviously you can do it the longer way and go add a shaken, or you can remove it. What you can see is all of these shortcut keys are incredibly intuitive. So we've got reinforcement tokens at Control R, we've got inspired tokens at Control I, shaken Control S, and then pinned at Control P. So if I was to go give this guy a second shaken token, you can see it changes. If I was to go give him a reinforcement token, another one, the numbers tick up. It's a little bit small on the screen, but the numbers do sort of show appropriately as 2, 3, 4, etc. The font can be a little bit hard to read. But bear in mind, you can often get other tokens as well. So my Warped here have 2 shaken tokens. If for whatever reason I was to give them an inspired token, you can see there it automatically, using Control I, reduces the shaken token. And if I was to go give him a second inspired token, you would see it takes the shaken away entirely. And that's because inspired and shaken are contrary and pinned and reinforcement. So if I was to give this fella a pinned token, you can see his reinforcements would reduce. And similarly, if I do Control P, it reduces entirely. Control P again, it now switches to a pin token. So all of that is automatically factored in and calculated by the engine, so you don't need to track that yourself. So those are the units, pretty much everything you need to know about them. Let's go back to the assets. So you can see here I've given Adeodatus the hovering portal and the relics of ancient Malifaux. Let's say this poor fellow was to pick up a hit during play. He might decide that, you know what, he would like to damage his hovering portal rather than face death. You can see there the color of the asset itself has changed, and if you look at the reinforcement, it shows very clearly that it's been damaged. If he happens to then pick up a reinforcement token, he can then go repair his asset. It returns back to its normal state, and that demonstrates in play with some clear visual indicators the status of each of the assets, whether you're looking at the reference cards or whether you're looking at the individual asset tokens. It's quite clear to your opponent which ones have been damaged and which ones are at full health, as it were. And then the final token I would then like to talk to you about are the stratagems. So in this game, you can see if I was to buy the From the Ether stratagem, at the moment, this stratagem is not visible to my opponent. So they do not know which of these I've got because this is hidden information in play. I can then say, at the beginning of a turn, I would like to purchase From the Ether. You can see there, it brings up a logo to illustrate that it's been purchased. And you can see my tactics have been reduced by 4. If I was to just bring those back up, just to demonstrate another feature, if I was to then go to the VP and give the defenders an additional VP, so that now I'm currently at lower VP, the Chaos Fissures you can see on the card itself has a tactical cost of 5, but you can see on the token itself in the middle there, it shows it's 4. That's because I'm at lower VP. The engine already knows that I can buy that at a discount, so then I can say purchase strategy at discount. It cost me only 4 tokens, and now I have Chaos Fissures and From the Ether. Both of these are now visible to my opponents. If they click on that, they can clearly see what it is, and they can also read it on the reference card. So that, you know, shows in-game state the status of each of these stratagems. And then whenever I'm used with them, So both of these are sort of one hit, one use only items, but some of the stratagems allow you to sort of return them. So let's just pick up one of those to demonstrate. If I was to go to, let's say, Malifaux and take domination, cost me two tactics because of my discount. Purchase the strategy, you can see it's been purchased. I'm now at 0 tactics tokens. At the end of the turn, this one goes back to my stratagem deck. So now I can say strategy, return strategy, and it goes back. And at that point in time, it is no longer visible to my opponent. Put it back in my deck, and I can then purchase it in a following turn. And at that point in time, you have now seen enough of the actual features and nuts and bolts of how this module works that you can actually have a game of TOS. And hopefully that means that when people start looking for games online, there'll be a few more people with their hands up saying, "Yeah, I'm game. Let's go." So hopefully you find that helpful, and I really do hope that I can get a few more opponents playing in some of the leagues that we run, and we can enjoy this fantastic game on Vassal. Thank you very much.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but the regulars should probably go and sleep it off. We'll be back soon, and I hope you can join us again. In the meantime, you can contact us on Twitter at Brewy's Table or email on thebrewmasterstable@gmail.com. Please do play heedlessly, chat brazenly, but drink responsibly.